Hello Internet, I'm Cybersaurus, and today we are going to talk about No Man's Sky. So let's get right into it. First, the good. The game's beautiful. The visuals on the land and in space are spectacular, and the color palette is one of the best I've seen in games in a long time. While there are graphical missteps, being some weird textures and lighting issues, the game overall is gorgeous. The sound design is one of the best I've ever heard in a game. I would put it up there with Shadow of the Colossus or Silent Hill. And I really want the soundtrack. The exploration gives a lot of fun to be had. If you want to explore the universe as an interstellar Magellan or Charles Darwin, this is the game for you. Now on to where the game is lacking. There are a lot of places where the game was supposed to shine and doesn't. Flight is atrocious. The ships handle like a semi-truck with no tires. The weapons are useless since fighting is nearly impossible. Pretty much anything that fights you will kill you. But death has no penalty. You just fly to where you died and pick up what you lost. Doesn't make much sense, but at least it's not Dark Souls. Speaking of the ships, they're a big disappointment. We were promised that they would have tons of variation, customization, what have you. They don't. Every ship handles exactly the same, fights exactly the same. The only difference is how they look and how many inventory slots they have. The inventory menus suck. You get around 15 inventory slots when you need an immense number more, because this game is super resource heavy. The gameplay is essentially fly to a planet, harvest resources, discover things, sell those resources, then warp to the next system. While the whole discovering new species can make up for that, overall I feel it's lacking. And since we've come to find out that when you discover something after 2 weeks, only 2 weeks, your data is wiped. That being anything you've named, all the names will go back to Gigaflargan Wobblebotson after you've painstakingly named everything on the planet Dick Butt. Which, I can understand needing to conserve server space, but they should have been clear on that. So, I expect an apology, Hello Games. I also expect apologies from Hello Games on the fact that most of the planets, while they're gorgeous, they look the same. I've yet to discover any sort of desert planet or a rainforest planet. They've almost all been rocky, lifeless hells. And the coolest thing I did manage to find was a sort of radioactive swamp. Which is also strange that every planet has a catch. And I mean every planet. They're either too hot, too cold, toxic, or radioactive. Every single one. From what I've seen, there are no exceptions to this rule. Other things that were promised were a faction system, which, while it's technically there, it's pointless. There are 3 factions, the Gex, the Vy'keen, and Korvax. You learn their languages, trade with them, build relationships. That's it. They don't go to war, you don't go to war. It's a meaningless system that just shouldn't have been put in the game in the first place. There's all these secrets about each faction that I don't think you can ever find the answer to, because you learn like 50 words. Which is annoying. It could have been much deeper. This also comes into play with space battles, which were also promised to be in the game, but aren't. In the trailers, they showed this footage of battleships warping into a system and attacking space stations. That just doesn't happen. The freighters and battleships in space aren't even really what they look like. They're static objects that never move. Which is sad. It could have been way cooler, but it's not. The gameplay overall, on the ground, it feels tight. The controls are good and responsive. In space, not so much. However, in space, the visuals are some of the most breathtaking I've ever seen in a game. And I could sit in space and stare at it all day and not get bored with it. Doesn't mean I will, because there are many interesting animals to discover, which is one of the main reasons I got the game. However, of the dozen or so planets I've explored, only one has had a large amount of animal life. And unlike the giant dinosaurs and sandworms we saw in the trailers, it's mostly creatures like what you see on screen. Small, frightened plant eaters that have pretty bad AI. The game is about 90% resource mining. Out of an 8-hour play session, you'll spend 6 hours with a laser pointed at a rock, blowing it up, harvesting it, and moving on. It's not very fulfilling. And in all honesty, it can be downright disappointing. In a game that you expected so much more out of, and you got a game that's 90% grinding for money, resources. That should be a crime. And while the game does have good features, has some fun to be had, overall, I do agree with the consensus that unfortunately this game is a disappointment. However, there is hope. Do not despair, my fellow gamers, because I believe with a lot of patches and love, this game can be what was promised. This game can be the incredible, revolutionary space odyssey that we expected. So, don't jump down the developers' throats just yet. Give them a little time. I have faith that they'll right the wrongs that this game committed. And while I may be wrong, I really hope I'm not. Overall, the game has promise, but it's not complete yet, so I would say give it a try. Just don't go out and spend $60 on it. Go down to your local video shop, rent it, see what you think, and if you love it, buy it. Give that money to Hello Games. If not, take it back. You've lost maybe $5, and you've potentially gotten an incredible experience out of it. Overall, I'd say this game would get a 5.5 out of 10, which is heart-wrenching for me. I had so much hope for this game, and so far, I've been mostly disappointed. But like I said, there may be hope yet. I'm Cybersaurus, and this has been my thoughts on No Man's Sky. Thanks for watching.